Eye on Gauteng, brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Economic Development.
Welcome back. You're watching Eye on Gauteng. Now, before the break, we were talking about the social economic imperatives regarding economic growth. Now, Lebohang, I think unequal economic opportunities is really the nub of the issue when it comes to Gauteng. Gauteng is one of those provinces where most of the people that live here are living quite well compared to the rest of the country, but it's unequal. Is it a ticking time bomb?
Well, it's bound to be. We can see it in terms of some of the community protests that we are witnessing. The thing with Gauteng is that it gives the impression of wealth across the board. And this obfuscates the fact that there's a lot of inequality and that there's a lot of poverty in this. It's also one of the most unequal, so economically unequal provinces in the country, which is very problematic. We forget that we have a large, not only urban poor, but also peri-urban poor. There are farmlands, there is there are urban, there are agricultural small holdings in Gauteng, which are subject to the very same conditions and the same marginalization that one would see in other parts of the country.
What should the Gauteng provincial government do to respond to those people?
There's quite a lot. I mean, I think that one of the models that we're seeing across the world right now is the notion of inclusive cities, which means inclusive economically, inclusive socially, inclusive culturally, and also taking into account the sustainable environment. Some of the issues that MEC also raised around carbon emissions, alternative economy. Social cohesion is extremely critical because a city like Gauteng is a metropolis, and it is subject to the social and the economic contradictions and challenges of any big city across the world. So it is subject to the fact that there's high expenditure, there is high yield, there is high consumption, but it isn't for everybody. That is bound to lead to its own difficulties and challenges. Now, issues around spatial planning, infrastructural development are very critical. I
think sorry to cut in there, but the MEC, I think the Gauteng provincial government has this idea called the global city region, and we've been hearing this idea. I've covered a lot of stories around it, but I think that particular idea and concept speaks to what Lebohang is talking about, as well as your policy of inclusive economic development. Do you want to respond to some of those issues, MEC?
I mean, the important thing about the global city region perspective that we're pursuing in Gauteng is exactly to do what Lebohang is saying, to get the provincial government together with municipalities, because you've said in the opening remarks that Gauteng is the smallest in the country, yet the issues around the inequality, we've got the highest population in the country, and we've got the highest levels of economic growth, and all of those things, hides the real facts about some of the people who are really affected. So working together with cities, it's about making sure that the things we do, provincial government do, high-level staff, municipalities, focus on the person and the service delivery from the person-to-person service delivery on that point of view, be it education, be the quality of healthcare, but also looking at the space and environment within which communities live, and those spaces should be clean. And also the question around the inclusive communities, about also looking into this all this climate change issues, and say what can you allow or can communities do, taking advantage of the fact that indeed we see even today it's a winter weather instead of it being summer. How do you take the environmental issues such that the communities benefit, whether be it about recycling, it's about keeping their cities clean, it's about the planting trees and all of those, which will in turn yield some economic activities and
still on the global city region, sorry, MEC, on the global city region concept, somebody staying in Lebohang, do they feel part of the Gauteng province? Do they feel part of Johannesburg? When they talk, they say we're going to Gauteng, but they are part of Gauteng. What is being done to make those residents feel that, look, actually we're part of this province?
I don't think that's necessarily the case about the people who've been in Gauteng for quite a long time. As you know,
it's a perception issue.
It's a perception issue. As you know, Gauteng is largely a very cosmopolitan province as compared to many in the country. You've got people who were born elsewhere and come here for work, and they find Gauteng to be their home of choice. As a result, we've done a survey that backs what I'm saying. As a result, you've got a lot of migrant workers and people who come here for schooling purposes. That's why every year we've got challenges around the enrollment of learners. That's why MEC has to have makeshift classes to accommodate those things. But coming to the fact that people, how do a person who lives in Vosloorus feel part of the broader Gauteng? People are very proud of being Gautengers, by the way. Wherever you are, if you find yourself being, for some reason, being Mpumalanga or Northwest, you'll find people wanting to still have a GP number for in their registration in terms of their cars. So that's that's a very important brand.
And it's got nothing to do with the gangsters' paradise.
No, not at all. No, it's a good people's province. And,
good people. Of course, I want to bring Lebo in.
May finish one point. And I mean, people are being proud of being Gauteng. However, one of the things that we're doing now in the Economic Development Department on the logistics hub, which are in the periphery following the ring road around the railway line, is to say what projects do you do that are going to catalyze and help the ordinary person in Zonke Zizwe who's outside of the urban centers of Germiston, of Boksburg and all of those. How do we help a person around Vereeniging or in Sharpeville or Buipatong who next to them is the steel factory or steel industry, but it does not beneficiate or benefit for the local community. So that are the programs that we're involving now, and then I'm sure that in the next coming 3 or 4 months or so, people are going to see those projects coming into real life and they are going to benefit. And I think through those projects, they're really going to want to feel, they're going to really feel being part of this broader picture of what we're doing.
Of Gauteng. And I think that's where the actual proof of the pudding is. People need to feel that they actually are part of Gauteng, and we look forward to seeing some of those MEC. Lebohang, I want to talk to you about small business. I mean, the Gauteng provincial government has what they call a Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, and they're, to help the small SMEs to come through. What role do you see small business playing, at least broad-based black economic empowerment, in the economic development of this province?
Small business is really where it's at. I mean, I think that it's the largest employer. Actually, it's one of the largest employment sectors. And I think to link back to one of the questions that you asked previously in terms of what can government do, government can certainly provide a lot more support to that sector. I think
is that sector struggling right now?
I think that during the recession, for example, 70% of businesses which went under would be in that category, the ones which yield $1 million or less, and yet this is where many people are employed. I think another difficulty is that the whole notion of urban inclusivity is linked back to issues of how we relate to our city. Issues of mobility are very critical. Issues of communication and transport infrastructure are very challenging. In a city where some people spend up to 1/3 of their income trying to get from one place or to the other, it's very difficult to think beyond the immediate survivalist issues. And for any small business person, the kind of tax incentive, tax breaks, the kind of bank collateral and financial models which are available to them need to be certainly much more tangible and much more visible. And I think that where we have businesses going in the light of this huge opportunity of economic and labor absorption, it's really not acceptable. And I think that one of the things that's really quite difficult as well is that we need to look at the notion of how these very difficult this disequilibrium then leads to a kind of a disjuncture where you get your two Gautengs. So you have your dream, which is your lovely city, your high rises, your Sandtons, etc., etc. And then you have the people who are on the periphery, who are not quite able to engage either economically, physically, even in terms of being there, educationally. And what it takes really to run a world-class economy is a bunch of skills, is a bunch of infrastructure, is a really systemic and deliberate development and economic plan, which is long-term, forward-looking and strategic. And
I think the MEC could come in here and talk about how they will be able to at least look at your procurement strategies and perhaps stimulate those economies on the periphery of the mainstream.
For the record, Gauteng, in terms of infrastructure advancement, I'm sure with the love of many provinces or countries who love to be where we are, and I think our infrastructure is world class and continues to be improved on a daily basis. What is the problem with the support to SMMEs and the current regime or environment is that SMMEs or entrepreneurs are sent from one pillar to post. And at the end of the day, they're not even getting support. The discussions I've been having both with ABSA and Standard Bank suggest that a majority of the money that they borrow to, they give loans that they give to individual citizens whom they would have gone through rigorous process to check whether the business plan is bankable or not. Most of them go past and go under, and they're not able to service their loans. So therefore, one of the things we're looking into working with them, as well as strengthening and repositioning the Gauteng enterprise propeller, is to say, is the lending model right? If the lending model is not right, what must we do to help SMMEs in any economy, whether it be Turkey, be it Italy, be it Germany, be it in Japan? SMMEs or entrepreneurs are at the backbone of those economies. So the big enterprises are there, but you need the smaller enterprises that hire between 5 and 20 or 30 people, that then you'll be able to say that the economy is prospering. So we need to do things differently, and we are doing those. That's why we're looking, again, the other problem is we do not have the culture of entrepreneurs in South Africa. Bulk of the companies that exist are public companies, either your mining houses owned by mining houses, or they are owned by a government or a state house, but you do not have family-owned businesses. And I think as long as you do not have entrepreneurs wanting to stay the course, no matter what the circumstances, and see business value, and of course investing in the long term, we're not going to do very well. That's why the Y8 program on focusing on young entrepreneurs, in order for them to come through the ladder, it will help in growing.
But very quickly, as a Gauteng provincial government, would you have those policies that that sort of preferential procurement for those small, or at least those black-owned businesses?
There is currently a preferential procurement policy framework that governs all of us.
Is it enough to actually support them?
The government procurement is not enough to grow this economy. Indeed, we're spending billions on buying toilet paper to bread to everything else. However, what we need is to invest in productive side of this economy. For instance, the company that produces cans in South Africa is one company. They are inefficient as anybody can think of. And no one is challenging them. No one wants to introduce competition and take them on prices and all of those things. Telecom and Neotel, the prices are more or less the same, and it takes you forever to get a landline, either from Telecom and Neotel, for whatever reason. So you need a lot of competition, and you need a lot of SMMEs to come into that space, and then you'll be able to see the economy prospering and growing. But for now, you've got a lot of you've got few big companies that are big, that are taking everybody for a ride, including the banks. We've got 4 big banks, and there's no level where your SMMEs and your small person who needs, like your Grameen Bank, who needs the 20 rands or 100 rands, who can get a loan and come back and pay tomorrow, and it goes on and on and on. Everything is so bureaucratic, both private as well as the public agencies. And what we are seeking to do indeed is to really shake up all of those things and say we can do things differently. Of course, working with the banks, and I'm sure we are going to find a lot of traction in the kind of things that I want to do.
Well, MEC, I think the program has exposed us to a lot of the challenges that are in the Gauteng province as well as Lebohang. I just want one last comment from both of you with regards to the future of this province. Is there hope for this province to continue punching above its weight and continue to be Africa's powerhouse? Yes or no? And just a very quick comment.
From where I'm sitting, the answer is to the affirmative, and Gauteng indeed is poised for us to grow, to take this country to the next level in terms of economic growth.
Lebohang?
We need to deal with our economic contradictions. We need to implement an all-encompassing, holistic social development economic plan, which brings the community,
But is there hope for
which brings the community closer together, either geographically, financially, educationally, and that's where we're going to see the magic of things moving.
All right, the magic of things moving. Thank you to my guest, MEC Mahlangu, for your time, as well as Lebohang Pheko.